Binta had just finished eating her food when she suddenly felt pressed and urgently needed to relieve herself. She asked the waitress where the restroom was located, and the woman politely pointed her to the direction. But when Binta got there, it was already occupied by another customer. Unable to hold it any longer, she noticed a swinging door nearby that led to the kitchen. Curious, she peeped through it, but she couldn't make sense of what she saw. So, she pushed the door open and stepped inside. What she saw next nearly made her vomit. Bones scattered on the floor. Dirty dishes piled high beside the cooking area. Raw meat left out in the open with dozens of flies perching on it. The women cooking the food had unkempt hair, and their white aprons were filthy, stained with all sorts of things. It looked like they hadn't been washed in weeks. The whole floor was greasy and wet, with rats running freely around. Then, Binta saw the chief cook, a very fat, dark-skinned woman wearing a sleeveless gown. Her teeth were brown, and her armpit hair was thick and disgusting. Binta watched in shock as the woman scratched her dirty armpit with the same spoon she was using to stir the soup, then continued cooking without washing it. Narrator. Binta held her stomach, gagging from the awful smell. She covered her mouth and nose with one hand and rushed out of the kitchen, trembling with disgust and disappointment. As soon as she stepped outside the restaurant, she threw up everything she had just eaten. Binta had grown up used to buying food from restaurants because she was too lazy to cook. She knew all the best and latest eateries in Abadani City, and had eaten in almost every one of them. Every evening, she picked a new spot to try. Her friend, Zara, would often warn her about this habit. Zara, gently. Binta, don't you know it's cheaper and safer to cook for yourself? Why do you waste money buying food outside every night? But Binta never listened. She'd reply proudly, Binta, there's nothing wrong with it. I like eating out. That's how I was raised. Binta was the eldest child of Mr. and Mrs. Garuba, who had 3 children, Binta, Kuna, and Lami. When they started school, their parents became too busy for home life. Each morning, their father would hand them money to buy breakfast at school. At lunchtime, they'd get food from a vendor beside their house. At night, they often ate from the same food stand before their parents returned from work. Mr. Garuba was a long-distance driver who spent months on the road, caring only about money, not home. Mrs. Garuba was a businesswoman with a busy shop in Okura Market, always gone before sunrise and back after dark. So Binta, though the eldest, never learned to cook. She raised herself and her siblings with street food and survival instincts. By the time she finished university, tragedy struck. Her father died in a car accident. Her mother, getting older, needed help at the market. Her siblings joined her there while Binta moved to another state for her teaching service year. In her new posting at Damaji village, Binta quickly adapted to her environment. There she met Noria, another graduate teacher. They became close friends and started living together like sisters. But unlike Binta, Noria cooked her own food. She often went to the local market to buy fresh ingredients. Binta, on the other hand, didn't own a single cooking pot. Instead, she spent her evenings exploring Damaji's food vendors, testing which restaurants sold the tastiest, cheapest meals. Noria, concerned. Binta, don't you know it's safer and cheaper to cook? Why keep wasting money outside? Binta, angrily, is it your money? Have I ever begged you for food? Mind your business, Noria. Noria apologized, saying she only cared for her friend's health, but nothing could change Binta's stubborn habit. One sunny afternoon, as Binta and Noria walked home from school, a handsome young man approached them. Man. Good afternoon, ladies. My name is Ibrahim. He smiled politely and asked to speak with Binta privately. They exchanged numbers, and soon they began talking often on the phone. Ibrahim was a successful businessman with several branches of his company across Dariba state. He often took Binta out to fancy restaurants to eat, and soon she fell deeply in love with him. One day, Ibrahim decided to visit her at home. She welcomed him warmly, offered him a soft drink, and they talked for hours. Suddenly, Ibrahim's stomach grumbled. He laughed and said, Ibrahim, Binta, I'm hungry. Cook for me. I want to taste your food. He even offered to take her to the market to buy ingredients. But to his shock, Binta replied, Binta, why cook? Let's just call one of those restaurants and order a nice meal. Ibrahim shook his head. Ibrahim, no. I want to taste your cooking. Narrator. When Binta realized he was serious, she sighed and confessed. Binta, I'm sorry, Ibrahim, but I don't know how to cook. Ibrahim stared at her in disbelief. She was beautiful and elegant, but she couldn't cook? Disappointed, he left abruptly. Later that evening, when Noria came home, she found Binta lying on her bed, sad and silent. When she asked what was wrong, Binta lied, saying she'd lost some money too ashamed to admit the truth. One afternoon, on her way back from work, Binta noticed a brand new, fancy restaurant that had just opened along the road. It was called the Golden Bowl, beautifully decorated, with music playing softly outside. She admired the place every time she passed by. It was always filled with customers, and one day, curiosity got the best of her. She decided to go in. The interior was sparkling and modern, and to her surprise, the food was quite cheap for such a beautiful place. This must be why it's always full, Binta thought as she browsed through the menu. A waiter approached and took her order. When her food arrived, it tasted delicious, rich, spicy, and flavorful. From that day forward, Binta became a regular customer. Every day, she made sure to eat there. The waiters even began to recognize her and already knew her usual order before she spoke. Sometimes, when her schedule was too tight, she would simply call them to deliver the food to her office. Narrator. But something strange was about to happen. Less than a month after Binta started eating from the Golden Bowl, she placed an order one afternoon while at work. Too tired to walk under the hot sun, she had the food delivered to her classroom. She opened the pack and began eating happily. But just as she was about to finish, she noticed something horrifying. A dead cockroach inside her food. Binta froze. Her heart raced. She couldn't believe her eyes. It was her first time seeing something like that. Being a fast eater, she never really inspected her food before. Disgusted, she threw the rest away. But instead of taking it seriously, she dismissed it as a small mistake. She told herself, maybe it just happened once. That foolish decision would nearly cost her life. A week later, Binta fell terribly ill. She had a high fever, stomach cramps, and a severe case of food poisoning. Her friends rushed her to Abadani General Hospital, where she was admitted for days. After examining her, the doctor frowned. "You're lucky you came in time. The bacteria in your system is very dangerous. It grows in dirty cooking environments. Always make sure your kitchen and food sources are clean, or it could kill you within days." Binta thanked the doctor, frightened and weak. When she was discharged, Noria took care of her at home, cooking her clean, simple meals every day. But as soon as Binta recovered, she went back to her old habits. Still buying food outside. Worse still, she kept eating from the same restaurant. 3 weeks later, it happened again. And then again, a third time. This time, Binta decided she would find out the truth for herself. On a quiet weekend, Binta went to the Golden Bowl again. She ordered her usual meal but decided not to eat it too fast. She carefully inspected each spoonful, searching for anything unusual. After finishing, she stood up, pretending she needed to use the restroom. The waiter pointed her toward a narrow hallway. When she got there, the restroom was occupied, so she decided to look around. At the end of the hall, she noticed a swinging door, the one that led to the kitchen. She peeked through it, and froze in horror. Dirty plates piled high beside the cooking area. Raw meat scattered on wooden tables, covered with flies. The cook's aprons were stained and filthy, clearly never washed. The floor was slimy, covered in spilled oil and scraps. Rats darted between pots and trays. And then she saw her, the same fat, dark-skinned woman who seemed to be the head cook. Her teeth were brown, and she was sweating profusely. Right before Binta's eyes, the woman scratched her armpit with the spoon she was using, then dipped it right back into the soup. Binta almost screamed. She ran out of the kitchen and back to her table, pretending nothing had happened. Her stomach churned as realization hit her. All the restaurants she'd eaten at, could they all be the same? She thought about every meal, every bite she'd ever bought. She felt ashamed and sickened. When Binta got home that night, she cried quietly. She wished she had listened to Noria all along. From that day, she made a decision. She would start cooking for herself. She cleaned up her kitchen, went online, and started watching videos to learn how to cook. She went to a Akura market, bought new pots, and stocked up on ingredients. That evening, Noria returned from work and was surprised to find Binta in the kitchen. Smiling, she joined her, and together they made their first homemade meal. Binta continued learning from Noria and from the internet. She stopped eating out and even started bringing food to work. Her colleagues were shocked to see the change, and many joined her during lunch. Months later, Ibrahim returned. He apologized for walking away and admitted he should have guided her instead of judging her. They reconciled, and soon after, they got married. The moral of this story reminds us that not everything is as clean as it appears. Always make efforts to see where your food is prepared. No matter how busy you are, make time for your loved ones. And when you truly care about someone, don't abandon them because of a flaw, help them become better.